Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So the 2025 playoffs are here. Feel free to go watch my full bracket predictions. But today, I wanted to look at every single team's starting goalies and rank them 1 through 16 based on how much I trust them come playoff time. So playoff track record is going to mean a decent amount. There's definitely some guys that dominate in the regular season, maybe struggle a little bit in the playoffs. So yeah, this is who I trust the most in the playoffs. And when looking at this is one of the hardest rankings I've ever made because you're going to see like 6 through 14, you can interchange it so much. So much is up for debate. A guy at 6 versus 14 is not some gap that it usually would be in a list like this. It's quite small. So yeah, let's dive into it. And also, I'm going to be including both Washington Capitals goaltenders because it appears like Logan Thompson is going to be out, missed the first couple of games, and Charlie Lindgren's going to have to play. And I'm going to have Frederik Andersen as Carolina's starting goalie. That wouldn't massively change, though, if they went with Chekhov instead. So yeah, we're going to start with number 1 and work our way down. And at number 1, I have Andrei Vasilevskiy. Again, if you ask me to start a team tomorrow, I'd rather go with Connor Hellebuck, who has been so dominant in the regular season and underrated to a degree in the playoffs. But come playoff time, I'm still going with Andrei Vasilevskiy. If I needed a goaltender to win me a series, I'm picking him. This season, he's all the way back in the regular season as well, a 921 in 63 games. And basically, since mid-January, he's been the best goalie in the NHL with a 930 in 30 games. When looking at his prior playoff numbers, he has a career 920 in the playoffs. From that 2020 to 2022 playoff run, he had a 928 in 71 games. I know he hasn't been that good the last 2 years in the playoffs. I kind of attribute that more so to Tampa Bay just not really being a contender, losing a decent amount of their depth. But yeah, I think Vasilevskiy has some things to prove in terms of going on another deep run, and I think he's probably going to do that if you watch my bracket prediction, and I think that he's going to ball out, and he's the guy that I trust most in the playoffs. So next up, it is Connor Hellebuck. I'm not going to have some bold take that Connor Hellebuck's 5th or 6th, like some people are making him out to be. Back-to-back Vezina Trophy winner, probably going to win the Hart Trophy this year as well, and even in the playoffs, he has a 910 in his career. It's not like he has this 897 in every single time he's been shit in the playoffs and is choked. He was great in 2018 when they made the Western Conference Finals. Very good for them in 2021 when they made the second round. Similarly to Vasilevskiy, the last 2 years, I think I put more so on his team. His defense core has been so underwhelming, especially against Colorado. You watch that series, the amount of odd man rushes that Colorado had were absolutely ridiculous. I think he's going to play solid this year and shut a lot of people up. I think that the notion that he's just this absolute choke artist, he had like a 932 in the Four Nations face-off. Not his fault that McDavid was left alone wide open in front of the net in that gold medal game. But yeah, I think Connor Hellebuck, people are being ridiculous. It's not like he's this historic playoff choker. At number 3, I am going to be going with Sergei Bobrovsky. Only has a 905 this season, which when you look at the other goalies we're going to be going over later, that's much better in terms of regular season numbers. But the last 2 years, he's been so good in the playoffs. He's arguably been Florida's most valuable player during their 2 Stanley Cup final runs. Definitely in that first season, he was carrying that team to a Stanley Cup final. And yeah, even this year, a 905, but it is a little bit misleading. Again, I care about more what these guys have done in the back half of the season compared to the first half. First half of the season, not even the first half, the first quarter of the season, like he had an 885 in his first 15 games. Since then, he has a 914 in his final 39 games. So he's back to playing like a top 10 goaltender. And considering what he has done the last 2 years in the playoffs, it's been awesome. He's a pretty safe number 3, in my opinion. At number 4, it starts to get interesting. I'm going to go with Darcy Kemper. I know that he doesn't have an amazing playoff track record, but he's won a Stanley Cup. People keep on saying, like, 2022, he shat his pants, and he didn't play that good, but he played good enough for them to win the Stanley Cup. I know it was like a super team. But when looking at him, last year was, like, shockingly bad just out of nowhere in Washington. He had an 890, but he has bounced back in the last 5 to 7 years, has been a very good goaltender. A 921 on the season and a 927 since he came back from injury after Thanksgiving, which is the best in the NHL. And I think he's going to provide something that LA has not had since Jonathan Quick was in his prime in terms of being an elite goaltender. So yeah, he checks in at number 4. At number 5, give me Linus Ullmark of the Ottawa Senators. Not the best playoff track record with Boston. He got pulled a couple times, but he has been so consistent in the regular season. 5 straight seasons with at least a 915, 2 of which were on the Buffalo Sabres. And then this year on the Ottawa Senators, put up a 909, 14 goals saved above expected. He's a consensus top 10 overall goalie in the NHL. I don't think that's controversial to say at this point. I think you can make arguments for top 5. Has not had that amazing deep playoff run yet, but I think with Ottawa, that could he could definitely steal a series in terms of beating the Toronto Maple Leafs. Jake Ottinger checks in at number 6. When looking at him in the playoffs, he has a career .915 across 47 games. He's only 26 years old, but he has a shit ton of playoff experience. And outside of like Vasilevsky, arguably, Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky might have the most recent playoff success and playoff experience out of anybody that we're going to be going through. When looking at it last year, he had the second highest goal saved to have expected, only behind Shesterkin and Swayman. Regular season this year, didn't knock it out of the park, but had a solid .909 and 10.7 goals saved to have expected. I know what to expect from Ottinger. Solid .910 to .915 goaltending come playoff time. The track record is there. I have him at number 6. At number 7, another guy that's had a lot of playoff experience, especially 2 years ago, Adin Hill. Very, very good in that 2023 playoff run where he had a .932 and would go on to win the Stanley Cup. Last year, he still had a .931 in 3 games against the Dallas Stars. And this season, he has a .906, but since early February, talking about guys that are getting hot come playoff time, he has a .920 early February and on. So he's hot right now. He's won a Stanley Cup. He checks in at number 7. At number 8, Jordan Binnington. This is definitely relying on more so the playoff track record. Last year, he was very good in the regular season with a .913. This year, a little bit more lackluster with a .900. But yeah, 2019, he dominated. In 2022, he was given the Colorado Avalanche, that super team, fits until Nazem Kadri injured him. And when looking at him in the Four Nations face-off, after a rough first game, the only reason it went into overtime was because of Binnington's play. He really locked down, and they ended up winning the gold there. So Jordan Binnington at number 8. At number 9, I'm going to go with Philip Gustafsson, a borderline top 5 goalie this season with a .914 in 58 games in his career. He has a .913 at this point. Back in 2023, when he played for the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs, he had a .921 in 5 games. So yeah, he was amazing in the 2023 season. Put up a down year last year, but everybody on Minnesota was not exactly playing that good. And then this year has bounced back and been an elite starter. So I got Gustafsson at number 9. At number 10, Anthony Stolarz. You could argue him much higher. The track record isn't exactly there, and the games played aren't exactly there. Because the last 2 seasons, he's been like as good as Hellebuck on a per game basis. The only problem is he's only played 61 games total the last 2 years, which is like one Hellebuck season. He had a .925 and a .926. He's appeared in one playoff game, but it was a Stanley Cup final game where the Edmonton Oilers won 8-1. He came in relief and allowed 3 goals on 19 shots. So the playoff track record is non-existent. So as a result, I have him at number 10. I understand if you have him higher. He's been great. But yeah, with that track record and even the games played the last 2 years, I think 10 is a pretty fair spot. At number 11, Sam Montembeault, a guy that I think is very underrated at this point because he played behind such a bad defense. He only had a .901, which people see that, oh, he's just an average goaltender. He ranked 5th in the NHL at goals saved above expected this season at 24.6. They've just been so bad defensively this year, the Montreal Canadiens. And in terms of his last 20 games played over on Money Puck, he's 2nd in goals saved above expected, only behind Anthony Stolarz. But much like Anthony Stolarz, I can't put him like top 8 because he's never played a playoff game. There's no track record to go off with a guy like Sam Montembeault. You don't know exactly what's going to happen when the bright lights are on him. In that similar vein, again, at number 12, I got Mackenzie Blackwood at .912 on the season and .913 with the Colorado Avalanche. He's been great, just hasn't played a playoff game in his career. In 2023, Vanacek and Schmid played for the New Jersey Devils. So yeah, he's been kind of inconsistent throughout his career, so will he show up when it matters most in the playoffs? If you watch my predictions, I think that he will play half decent. But yeah, I think that you can't really put him that high because of the no playoff games. Logan Thompson at number 13. This one's tough. First 2/3 of his season was the clear-cut runner-up for the Vezina behind Connor Hellebuck. Then in his final 15 games, posted an .877, and now he's hurt. He's coming back from injury. He only has 4 career playoff games. He has a .921 in those playoff games. But yeah, I can't say that you have the utmost faith in Logan Thompson, considering how lackluster he was down the stretch. And he's just going to be thrown into the fire. He's going to have some practices, some skates, but he's going to be going from getting injured to being thrown potentially late in a series against Montreal. If that's a close series, it could be scary for Logan Thompson. At number 14, this is where I slot in Freddie Anderson. Has not been able to stay healthy this season. In his last 4 games, he's only played 20 games total. And in his last 4 games, he has not posted above an .860. He's been getting shellacked. An .899 on the season. Just has not really been able to get into a flow for the most part. Kochetkov would be 1 spot down because at number 15, I got Jacob Markstrom. Again, he's a good goalie. 4th, what I say, 6 through 15. It's 6 through 15 is very, very close. But Markstrom hasn't really been that good this season. He ranks 23rd out of 30 in terms of goals saved above expected with at least 41 games played. He has a .900 save percentage behind a pretty decent defense in the New Jersey Devils. Jake Allen has been better than him with a 906 and 18.4 goals saved above expected. So they give up a first round pick that right now is slated to be 18th overall. And Markstrom hasn't really lived up to the billing. And Markstrom's a guy that has shown brilliance in the last couple years, but it's been one really good season in 2022, shit in 2023, good in 2024. Pretty average, not as bad as 2023, but pretty average this season for a New Jersey Devils team that was definitely expecting a lot more out of him, considering they gave up a decent pick. That's going to be a pretty decent pick at this point. My hair keeps on falling down. At number 16, this is where I'm going to slot Stuart Skinner, an 896 on this season. Has just been far too inconsistent. And compared to last year, where he was playing great the final 2 to 3 months, that has not exactly been the case. He does have a shit ton of playoff experience, which is why I don't have him number 17. And he was very good in games 5 through 7 when it really mattered, not really games 1 through 4. But I just can't trust this guy heading into the playoffs. And for a team like Edmonton that is trying to contend, this is such a clear weakness. Again, 6 through 15, very close. 16 and 17, pretty obvious in my opinion. And Stuart Skinner checks in at number 16. At number 17, though, and last, I'm going to go Charlie Lindgren. He had that Linsanity run at the end of last year to get Washington into the playoffs, but he's kind of reverted to what he was in the 2023 season, and it's kind of always been a serviceable backup. He has an 894 on the Washington Capitals, the conference winners, so that's not very good. And in the playoffs, his only playoff track record, it's not his fault at all. Washington was outclassed against the New York Rangers, but he had an 864 in 4 games. So yeah, it's looking like Lindgren is more so the 2023 guy than the insane run that he had at the end of last year, and doesn't really have some kind of impressive playoff track record, so he checks in at number 7. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about these rankings? We'll go through it one more time. We got Vasilevsky in first, then Hellebuck, Bobrovsky, Kemper, Ullmark, Ottinger, Hill, Binnington, Gustafsson, Stolars, Montembeault, Blackwood, Thompson, Anderson, Markstrom, Skinner, and then our boy Charlie Lindgren. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.